Hello, everyone. So we talked about this before, back about maybe 4 years ago, and I suppose my opinion hasn't changed now. But I do think it's important to kind of talk about it. And it's important to kind of update, I suppose, and just even to say your view again, I suppose, because it is 4 years ago since I stated this view, I suppose, in Thomas. But it's to do with Irish citizens, say, for example, in Australia, in Poland, in France, in Austria, wherever. Of course, the world. You know the way it like say for example in Poland and Hungary, they can vote basically in Ireland at the embassies. In Ireland, of course, you can only vote when you're in Ireland. You can't vote when you're in Poland. Take for example, if you're an Irish citizen, have Irish like passport, Irish citizenship. You can't vote, say for example, in Warsaw for the president of Ireland or for your local, like say, not even councillor, your TD, Chocty Dollar. You can't vote, even though you say have an Irish citizen, etc. You have citizenship, say in Cavan, and you're a resident of Cavan, etc. You can't vote in Poland, and there's a very good reason why. And I think everybody can understand why the government would never do that. I know a lot of people. There's one or two people I've heard of that are pushing very hard for this stuff. But I think they need to realise the government is not going to do that, because why would they? Like, imagine the votes they would get in Australia and New Zealand. Like, imagine the political establishment, what they would get. Even Sinn Féin, the Labour Party. Like, would they get absolutely fucking mangled up? Like, they would absolutely get mangled up in Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. Because all the young people were forced to leave this country. All the young Irish people were forced to leave this country. And got nothing basically. And what I'm trying to say is, why would they vote? Like, why would they vote for the parties to kick them out of this country? To force them to leave their own country, to go to another country. Like that would be just so. Like they would be generally looking to just suicidal themselves at this stage. The parties, if they were going to do that, because not likely that the young people in Australia, the young Irish people, had to leave this country because they couldn't get to work or they couldn't afford to pay the bills. Not likely they're going to vote for Fine Gael and Sinn Féin, not very likely. They're going to vote for the most radical people to annoy the government. Let's be fair, whatever the people here, the people in Australia be out to get the government, and rightly so, to be totally, I wouldn't blame them. But the government knows this, they're not stupid, they know rightly that that'd be the case. And if I was support too, I'd be out to get them too. If it was elections, say for example, if I was in, I don't know, Denmark or whatever, if I moved to Denmark or whatever, just for argument's sake, like I'd be out to get the government too. I'd be out to just to vote for the most absolutely insane candidate I imagine, but just to fuck them over in every conceivable way. So they're never going to do that, but it would be good, of course. Other countries do it, and I do think it's important because still a lot of Irish people to believe, when even when they move abroad, they do, like a lot of Irish people don't look for citizenship. Like even in Australia, there's so many Irish people that have been there for 20 years in some cases, more than 20 years. I even heard of one person there 40 years. And they still have Irish passport. They don't have an Australian passport or an Australian citizenship. They have Irish citizenship. They have the right to be in Australia. The right to stay there. They have residency permit to stay in Australia. They're allowed to stay there. But they don't have Australian identity. And a lot of Irish people won't give up the Irish identity, Irish citizenship, etc. And they're rightly so, because at the end of the day, they have no right. And I'd say this to people, even if you walk in the last 50 years in Australia, you have no right to claim citizenship. You're allowed to stay there. You should be allowed to stay there, but you have no right. You should always have your Irish citizenship, because because you're looking for more stuff of the Australian government basically. If you're a citizen of Australia or New Zealand, or the same goes for Canada or whatever country. That's the way I see it. You should always keep your Irish identity. Whatever, but you have, you're allowed to stay in the country, fair enough, that's the only thing. But I don't think any Irish citizen should be giving up their identity in terms of the citizenship of Ireland. I don't think they should ever do that. In exchange for, say, even as I say, Canada or for New Zealand or anything, you should never do that, in my view. Because you shouldn't. You have no right to claim their resources or anything. The same as they don't have the right to come here and claim Irish citizenship, except they shouldn't have the right. You have to own it, basically. You have to own it very harshly, basically, what I'm trying to say, because it's given out like candy cane nowadays, unfortunately, in a lot of countries. And it has to be owned very, like, what I'm talking about, nearly you'd have to work all your life. Basically, you nearly have to be on your deathbed to get it. In my view, you should be, because at the moment in time, it's basically meaningless, unfortunately, identity, nearly at this stage. But I suppose the heel of the hut is here, is that it would be good, of course. I think everybody would agree. It would be good, of course. But the only thing is, the government would never agree to it. Of course, the Irish citizens would love to have a say on what's happening in Ireland, of course. But, let's be fair. Micheál Martin, the Simon House, they're not going to agree with it. Even Mary Lou, if you said that to Mary Lou would go mad. Because they know that it wouldn't go their way. Like even Sinn Féin, they know that people wouldn't be too pleased with the Irish establishment for making them leave the country. To go to another country, and fair enough. I think that's a very reasonable thing, because I think they would know they were doomed. They were totally doomed if that happened. But yeah, let me know what you think. I know some people are pushing very hardly for it, but I think some people do underestimate that the government won't shoot themselves in the foot in this regard. That's the thing you need to understand. So it'd be very unlikely they'll ever do it. I never think we see it in our time. It would take a revolutionary change of mind to have such a thing. Now, would I personally want to see it? I would probably only say not all around the world, like say Africa, New Zealand, etc. I would say probably Europe, because you have to remember too, it would be a nightmare to organise too across all countries for every Irish citizen to get the right to vote. It would be insane. Like in the United States, Australia, it'd be madness. What about Europe? Maybe that could be feasible, but literally trying to get results from Australia for say the presidential election and stuff, we would go mad basically. Basically, I'm trying to say, because it'd be just insane. Like we were talking about nearly probably God knows 2 million votes in Australia they count. Like in the United States, God bless us, we could fucking be here in the next year, just counting a few election results. But anyway, let me know what you think. Subscribe for more and bye.